Hey, Treb, good morning.
Hey Reed, how's it going?
Oh, pretty good. It's one of the few times that I can actually say we're both in a time zone and relatively within stone's throwing distance of each other in the same state, which is pretty atypical for most of the guests that I have on.
Yeah, at least the same time zone. So
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, thanks for coming on today. I'm excited
yeah,
to finally get a talk that gets to be on Teams, which has definitely been a fun and exciting new feature in the last year.
yeah. There's been a lot of changes with this since they rolled it out, and the thing with goals is we were part of the private preview. So when they finally announced it, it's like, yeah, now we can talk about this stuff. And we've had a lot of excited people with around this functionality. So I'm looking forward to telling people more about it. Also with this talk, yeah, thanks for the hat. There's a story here, but I don't know if we'll have time to go into that. But basically, I'm going to show you not only the feature, but I'm also going to talk about how people are using it today because we do have some clients who are using it. So I think it's going to be a good chat today. And I'm following the chat. So I saw some questions already. We're trying to answer them, but yeah, we'll see how that goes. So
Yeah,
anyway,
absolutely.
feel free to
And
ask
like,
questions.
yep, yeah, and don't worry too much about having to monitor too directly during the demo. I can manage all of that, and I have little fancy buttons that click
Okay.
all of it up for us. So, but yeah,
I did see.
go ahead.
Well, I saw one question I've
Mhm.
never been asked before about report server, and I'm like, well,
Yeah,
I have clients that use it because anytime you have certain words like nuclear involved in what you do, like power generation, you're going to be using
yeah,
a report server. So,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, okay, I see the point. I've actually never asked the team that, so I will follow up on that.
Yeah, like as I mentioned, just we'll go into this, and then I'd love to have you give a little introduction about yourself. So,
Yeah.
essentially, anything that requires any type of cloud communication with Azure or other stuff to run basically
Mhm.
can't really, for the most part, be done on a report server unless you have a local instance of that, like running on your
Yeah.
machine. And I'm not positive, but I feel like somewhere in the back end there's got to be extra services being used for goals in some way, some
Yeah.
type of Azure additional computing or service, being able to allow for that, especially the fact that, like as you will see today, you can like open up an embedded report, click on the the options to get the data, like
Yeah.
all of those other things, which is like I imagine the computing power and everything else to get that to run, and code complexity on a local machine would be very difficult. So that's the one downside. Is it's
Mhm.
like in theory it could be done, but you'd have the amount of coding required to get that versus just the reports. So there's a sad limitation with
Yeah.
it. It's needed for nuclear and other very sensitive data or people who
Yeah.
just don't want to move to the cloud yet. But you'll continue to get reporting features, but the service heavy features, premium type stuff, all those others are, it's kind of more of like you throw a penny into the well, make a wish, and maybe 1 out of 30 of them might show up, but it's going to be pretty
Maybe, yeah.
limited.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. um,
Well,
Wrapping that up though, I'd love
we could
to.
go the whole hour
Yeah,
just on
exactly.
that.
Uh, if you want to give a little background about yourself, tell us who you
Sure.
are, what you've done. I think that would be great for the people tuning in.
Okay. So for those of you who are on who don't know me, my name is Treb Gatte, and I am CEO of Marquee Insights. That's why you're seeing that in the chat. That's how I'm logged in. So I'm a data platform MVP, was an office MVP before that. So I've got like equal time in both. And so I founded Marquee Insights, and we basically help people create their data cultures. And we've been involved with goals from the very beginning. Very excited by this because I really think this is the first feature really targeted to executives. And so I'm going to go through that, and so we're going to go through that and show you how people are using it. Hopefully, give you some good ideas, and also point out some of the secret sauce features that are there that maybe haven't clearly come to the forefront. So, you want me to just go ahead and
Yeah,
get started? Or? Yeah. Okay. Cool.
jump right into it.
And yeah, feel free to okay, interesting. You're seeing my screen. Okay, that's good.
Oh,
First off,
actually, one sec. I am realizing you aren't sharing at the moment, but what it does is it freeze frames the very last frame share.
that's perfect. Yeah,
So
that's perfect.
yeah, but you aren't currently sharing on Skype, so you
Yeah,
actually do want to. Yeah. Okay.
I'll cut over when I'm ready to do that. So
Gotcha.
what you're seeing here is a scorecard, and we're going to talk more about what this is, how this works, and whatnot. I'm going to go through all the features. But what I want to talk about first is why goals? Like, what is this thing that they've rolled out? Realistically, it's about where we're going as opposed to where we've been. Power BI has made it so easy to create reports that now we can't find the answers we're looking for. And it's very common now. I'm running into people who have 50 to 100 reports to look through. If you have 7 visuals per report, I mean, that could be 700 places to look for an answer. Goals pivots this whole thing and looks at the specific metrics that you care about, the metrics that matter to you, and starts with that, and then allows you to drill down into the reports. One of the things that I would suggest if you're just starting on your Power BI journey is actually to start with goals, define that end state, and then work out the reports that you need to support it. And by doing so, I find you're going to do a lot less work, which is also good, but you will have that engagement from the executive suite that you need in order to make sure this thing keeps going. So we're going to go through, what are goals, what are the scorecards, and the scorecards here are just a way of posting a number of goals together. And they can be targeted for the fiscal year, they can be targeted for a team, they can be pretty much anything that you want to. And within each line, what you're doing in that goal is you are targeting, that specific metric. You can see you can have multiple owners. So we'll go through that, how you can have up to 5 owners now. The progress line is something, if you have time-based data, you can actually show this over time and show your progress. And the status indicators have gotten very interesting. I'm going to dive into that a little bit deeper when we get there. But the main thing is you can also track your status along with it. And I think that's been one of the things that people are very excited about. And so we're going to go into, the details of this. One thing I will suggest too, if you're really looking to get into goals, download the mobile client. The mobile team has done a fantastic job of showing off the goals within mobile. I think it looks better on mobile than it does on the web. And I think having the ability to see that right where you are at any time is fantastic. And so, it's really something that we want to show people. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Let's see if I can. There we go. Do that one. Start sharing. So I just want to cover how are they being used today, because I've got some examples. And let's see. There we go. Hopefully you're seeing that. So the 3 things that we're seeing primarily are something called OKRs, objectives and key results. This is a older technique. It's been around for a while, but when everybody went remote and hybrid, it came back basically because people needed a way to keep track of what is it we're actually trying to get done here and where are we. So we're seeing goals used a lot for that. Office actually made an acquisition. They bought Ally.io, which is an OKR company, to put into their Microsoft Viva suite for just this reason. So you're going to see this is an overlap point that I think they're going to rationalize hopefully in the next year or so. We're also seeing people monitoring metrics. So say you've got real-time analytics running, like for a call center or IoT or something like that, you can actually hook that into goals and use it for your top line monitoring. And then there's just a lot of experimenting out there. It's just fantastic to see, but it's kind of interesting to see where things are going to wind up. Now, if you're interested in OKRs, which has by far been the biggest use, you want to get this book, John Doerr. If you haven't read it already, you need to get it. It's going to really make life, I think, easier for you to understand this. And it's very, very helpful to have that focus on what are we trying to achieve and what are the key results that we have to do to get there. And but it can be abused, as anything can. But I think having that book in your toolbox is definitely a good thing. We've also seen where using fast goals, not SMART goals, work out better, where they're frequently discussed. They're not something you do once and then put on the shelf and never look at. We're seeing a lot of people now incorporating scorecards into their weekly status meetings and whatnot. So again, take a look at the whole situation, and you'll see a lot of things that you can do with it. I've actually got this scorecard up live, but this is a customer scorecard. This is the one you were seeing when it first came up.
Mm-hmm.
If you notice, this is something like this particular organization manages the help desk for both internal and external customers. And if you look at this, these are the metrics that they're monitoring. They're tied to reports and whatnot. It's a little different way of looking at what we do with reporting. So, and you can have up to 5 levels within this hierarchy. So each level can have a different way of being organized. Sorry, I'm taking a look at the chat here. Yeah, so this one here, this was an actual manufacturing CEO scorecard. And we were having dinner with this Bill, I'll call him, because he's down in South Carolina. And he was just having a moment where he was frustrated that he couldn't get an answer to something without it taking 3 days because somebody had to go write a report for it. And he's there with the CFO, and they said, look, here's the 8 things we care about. I doubt seriously anybody's ever had that conversation within the org to say this is what the reporting needs to get up to. But I think if you're going to look at goals, now's the time to do that. Now, one of the questions that came up in the chat earlier is, hey, is this a premium only feature? No,
Yep.
It's available in Pro.
Mm-hmm.
You can have it, you can use it in Pro. All the features work fine. Basically, I would say start taking a look at it. And it's been available for a while now in Pro. So we definitely want to get you there. Tell you what, let's dive into the tool itself because it's a little bit more fun.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah, and let's see. I read the book above. Okay, cool. So one of the things that I'll point out is you now have this nice little trophy because everybody gets a trophy now on the left rail, and that's going to take you to your goals hub. This is a version 1, folks. It's still a work in progress. They're still trying to figure out what we need to see here, what we're going to see here. There's a lot of confusion about how these cards show up, for example, and it's one of those things where the closest I can find is if it's active, very active, and if you're the owner of it, they'll show up here. But that's one of those things I think they're going to need to tweak. Most of the stuff going on down here is, which scorecards do I have available? So if I dive into, that's the wrong one. That's my playing around one. This one. So this was the one I was showing you. And essentially, we've got customer level, we've got employee level, we've got operations. So here you can see for operations, we've got tickets, we've got number of tickets, availability, like what types of questions are being asked, how many are returns, that kind of thing. I mean, you can get very detailed with this. And it's a great way then to look exactly what's going on and drill into where I need to. Now, you'll notice up here, this says engage. One of the things you can do in here is you can actually customize your statuses. And one of the problems that we've seen is that red, yellow, green isn't consistent across reports and what it means. And people have to sit there and go, what's red again? It's not a great experience. So we work with a number of customers to basically flip the script and say, what is it that we want that executive to do? And so we came up with 3 of these statuses. Inform, which is your green status, which says everything's good, we're just letting you know. We have enable, which is your yellow status, which essentially says if I need something enabled because we're blocked, maybe we need a PO approved or something like that. It's very clear that they have something to do, but it's not, terribly into the world kind of stuff. If we ask them to actually engage directly, that says we've got a serious problem, we're totally blocked, we need your help. And the thing is, that's consistent across every metric then. It makes it very clear what they're supposed to do, which actually turns out to be a good thing because frankly, your CIO is not going to come up to you after the meeting and say, what was it you wanted me to do again? Never going to happen. Never going to happen. So we just made this a lot easier. The other thing, and this is what I call the secret sauce here, is this ability to do check-ins. Now, we had a client, or there's a company up in Canada right now. They're rolling out scorecards for each employee, and they're doing it for the departments. I mean, they're basically creating this massive set of scorecards at every level. And this is all for this fiscal year, so they get to redo it again. And within the check-ins here, you can actually, when I do a check-in, I can not only, I have the ability to set these up as a manual goal. So if I'm trying to work it out at the beginning, trying to pin these folks down to what is it you really care about, then I can maintain all the notes that way. And then later I can tie it to a report. This is why I'm saying, if you're getting started, it's a great place to start because you're kind of doing what you're doing before, but at least that looks prettier. But the main thing here is this note. You can actually paste in, we haven't yet hit the limit of how much text I can paste in here. And to give you an idea, in this one, we actually, and this is based on what we were seeing with the client, their first check-in was always, why are we doing this? So they had the business challenge, the success criteria, they had other information that they listed as the first check-in. And the cool thing is that over time, you can actually see how things have progressed. You can see where things have changed. So if I look at the history, I can see we've gone from engaged to not started to engaged. This one's kind of weird. But you could see that, oh, we were green, 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 yellow. Then we went green again. Then we went red. Because if it's yellow, you really need to know where you were the week before, the check-in before you know where we're going from there. And yeah, let's see, I tried to pin them down to a short list of KPI type stuff, still waiting 3 weeks later, 2 months later. So here's the thing. Depending on your org, what I would do is look out on the internet. This is actually a post I've been working on. We haven't quite finished it yet. Most industries have very specific metrics that they track at the highest level. If your customer service, it really is about wait time. It is about the volume, the satisfaction score. I mean, these are common across every company. What you may need to do is actually start with that and then, have them break it down further. Because most people, if you give them what do you need to know? It's deer in the headlights. And I know, Reed, you've had that moment where you're sitting there going, you ask the question and there's nothing, So
Exactly.
It's always fun. It's always fun.
Yeah.
And then here, so if I go in here and I edit this, like I'm going to hit.
By the way, for the check-ins, is there a way to schedule those? Because it is kind of nice to see the that little chart that starts to appear with the check-ins. So, or maybe that's something that's coming.
No, actually, one of the things. So there's 2 things that you can do here. One is when you are in the goal itself, you can set up a cycle. So let's see the details. And in settings here, you can set your
Ah,
tracking cycle.
good. Yep.
Okay.
Hmm.
Now, there's two places where this gets used. One, you have the ability now, close, you have the ability to access the underlying data set for this. And it shows up in the reporting. So if I go to my data sets here and I look at my, let's see, customer care, I think it's the one I had. And let's see, yep, that's the one, create from scratch. So you have all this information available in the data set. And so you can actually see from the statuses, from the values, all the information. You can do a lot of reports around this. In fact, we have a template app we're working on to help people with this. But the other thing you have to be aware of is if you're going to use the underlying data set for a scorecard, you actually have to set up the scheduled refresh because the data is actually not stored in Power BI. It has to go out and retrieve it. So this is something that people need to be aware of. The other thing is if you go into Flow, and this is another interesting thing. So if I go here, they've actually added incredible flow support for this. And I can actually tie this to, say, a SharePoint list or some other thing that I'm using to get those statuses in. So you don't necessarily have to take people to the scorecard to do their check-in. So the triggers, we also have triggers where if somebody does do a check-in, if somebody changes an owner, if the status changes, then you can trigger that. On the other flip side, you've got, add a note to check-in. So the check-in and the notes are actually separate. They show up in the UI as one thing, but you can have one check-in and then have everybody on the team do a note and do sort of this, it's an interesting way to do it. We're still seeing some people experimenting with it. And we're seeing people, write Power Apps and whatnot. So you've got some definite options around that. If you go to, let's see, where to go? Oh, I'm in the workspace. There we go. Notice you've got this data set with it. So again, you just have to make sure you refresh it. So if I do that one, do this one, it usually refreshes in under a minute. It's very fast. And then you can basically go into it and see the data. They are documenting the database. I know there's still some changes going on. So if you created a scorecard like 4 months ago, it's not going to have some of the data stuff that it does now. So just something to be aware of. Yeah, let's see. How are we doing, folks, on the chat? Just seeing the slowdown here. But there's a lot of stuff in here.
They're just probably watching.
Yeah. Yeah, please ask me questions. It's one of those things, too, where let me look at the marathon prep, because during COVID, I gained a lot of weight. I have to say, my baking skills have improved tremendously, but it's one of those things where I'm like, yeah, I probably need to work on this. But I did this marathon prep, so I was going to run the Disney marathon, and like, what would I need to do to actually achieve that? So I said, okay, let's break this down, and so I started this off. You can see I didn't get very far, but so I had the year-long prep, and then I broke it down by quarter. What was my goal? And then what was I going to have to do every week to reach that goal, basically. And, here, again, I've got on track, behind. But now, I can go in here, I can go into my settings, I can go into status, and I could basically, update this. In fact, you can have up to 12 statuses now, and they have all these nice little colors. So, I could say total fail. And these are unique, to the scorecard. So let's see, working on it.
Have they ever considered the, because there's probably potentially room on the button to I guess you could also technically use emojis next to it, but I was going to say, is there any way to include icons? But I think a temporary workaround is a little, Windows key and the semicolon. If you do that, then it pops up the emoji keyboard. Yeah. So you could probably put your own in rather than a drop down, but yeah, exactly. There you go. Yep. Because my thing is I'm channeling my Megan. I'm channeling Megan Longoria, where it's like, hey, just colors and words are good, but also colors, words, and icons are like the best, because then you have 3 different ways that you're indicating a status.
I didn't know you could do this, man. This is awesome.
All right, sweet. I just taught you a new thing. And if you look for say like triangle, down arrow, up arrow, there's a lot of emojis to use. I feel like I was doing a spellcasting right there, but
Yeah.
Yeah, the like that's actually one thing I like to use for certain things, or even in like cards and other stuff in Power BI. Like have DAX concatenated just with a little icon next to it, because you can
Yeah.
put emojis in DAX too.
Yeah, we were looking at the page navigator to add, basically the icon in front of the thing that you're navigating to,
Hmm.
and I haven't figured out how to do a monochrome icon because everything wants to look like this, which is great, but sometimes I just want plain white or plain gray or whatnot, and
So
I haven't figured
to
out.
to that is don't bring up the emoji keyboard because those are actual icon packs. Just go online for like ASCII library, the ASCII. Those is
Yeah,
just plain text, and that can get colored whatever the color of the text is. It's the font. It basically
okay,
it's just font. So that actually as
sure,
font formatting. These are like technically a font, but like outside of the scope of they don't get colored, they don't get
right,
anything else because they have their own, and they also render differently on Apple. Smiley face looks a bit different than the Android, which is different than the Windows. So that's another thing is like
mhm,
somebody who opens this on a different OS, that symbol will look a little bit different. It'll probably still be
gotcha.
part of the same master library, but different artists create different ones, so that it's a small nuance to them.
Yeah, it's just usually they lock these text fields down where you can't do this. So I actually never tried to do it. I just assumed you couldn't, but this is amazing. So I learned something new today. This is awesome. What's the pricing for golds? If you have Pro, if you have Premium, you have it already. It should be I think your admin may have to turn it on, so it's just something to be aware of. But you should have it already. If you see the little trophy here in the left-hand side, you're good to go.
Exactly.
So um, that is awesome. So yeah, and the check-in, like I said, with the notes, I have pasted in 5 pages from Word, and it just took it. It also supports rich text formatting, so I can come in here, do a check-in, make stuff. If I get to scroll, there we go. So I can do, this is a check-in with the cursor so I can see, and let's see, make this bold, and I'll make it green. They haven't given us theme support yet, so that's a bummer. And I can do underline again. It just takes it, and I've actually pasted in, like I said, pages and pages of stuff. It just makes it a lot easier. So again, what I would say, uh, the reason I find goals better than a dashboard, based on the question I just asked, is that it focuses on those metrics that matter to you, as opposed to I'm seeing more information than I need to on a dashboard. Frankly, I haven't seen a lot of love on the dashboards recently. I mean, Reed, are you seeing anything that's new there? It just feels like it's kind of stagnant at this point.
Yeah, I mean that not
Uh,
much has changed for that, and I agree. Like the dashboards had the initial alerts on cards. This allows you to attach alerts to a lot more than just cards because on a dashboard, alerts can only be set to single value cards, a gauge, or the KPI card. This you can, and
yeah,
as you may get to in a little bit, is like you can click on any single column, bar, cell. Like it can anchor to pretty much any data that is visible, and so it's more robust. It provides a lot more features to that, and as you said, you can customize it down individually, and dashboards just feel like they're a bit on life support. I mean, like I honestly less than 30%, probably even less than that of my projects end up with a dashboard. I built a lot of
I, I,
them
I,
internally for Microsoft, but most of my outward facing clients, the reports are usually good enough.
yeah, we're down to probably 5%, I think, because
Yeah.
they're not seeing the value of it if there's other ways to do it. Plus, if you're embedding it in Teams, if you're embedding it in SharePoint, elsewhere, it's just easier to just go to the report. Yeah, there's a couple of things to be aware of here. So again, yes, you can connect this to data. They've done a really good job here. And there's a couple of things I'll point out. So I'm going to go to my sales analytics for Dynamics here. If you aren't using the filter pane, this might actually push you to start using it. Why? Because even if I connect to a visual, which you can choose to connect to a card, pretty much anything, or a series. So if I come in here and let's see, so like this series, if I wanted to connect to the series, notice, and of course I picked the wrong one. Let's try one more. I know it's in here somewhere. Anyway, what I was getting to is you can connect to it as is, and it'll show you that, or you can actually filter it first. So if I wanted to say, oh, just give me the current month, like that, I can connect to it there, but I can only get to the filters that are there in the filter pane. So it's just something to be aware of. But if I click connect now, what will happen is anytime that that report is refreshed, it will update my current value. Same thing with the target if you have a moving target. Now, where this winds up helping you is with the status rules. So I can come in here and set up a status rule that works on the value, the date, the value change. So if I have a value change of plus or minus 10% kind of thing, I can actually fire my status here. So maybe I've got value is less than, and in this case, I'm just going to say, let's do 200. I want to make that red, total fail. Otherwise, everything's cool. Click save. And so now anytime that that goal is updated, so if you think about it this way, the report gets refreshed, it updates the goal. It doesn't actually store the data there, it just tells it that there's been a change. That status rule fires, which says, hey, we're now red, and now I can have a Power Automate action, a trigger that fires, that then sends an alert that says, hey, there's something going on here. And this is why if you are doing real-time databases where you're streaming data, I mean, think about that. You could be getting an alert that, hey, we're out of tolerance, or the thermostat, we're out of the temperature range we're supposed to be in, that kind of thing. And be using that goals scorecard as a way of monitoring those metrics. So we had a call center that wanted to have one of these up at the, they usually have these big televisions with the current status of things. They could use a scorecard for that. They don't have to build a custom report for that kind of thing. So it's a different way of looking at the reporting that we've been doing, where we're trying to give you the details. It's like, give me the headline, and then we can work into the details. Now, because I connected this one to that report, if you hover over this, go back to read mode, notice there's a little icon that shows up here. So this is why I'm saying I actually like this better than the dashboard, is that I can use it to do the same thing. Now I can drill into the page that I'm connected to, and of course I'm going to, okay, it took me to a different report, but that's different. Yeah, so again, you can use this as a way of substituting for a dashboard, if that makes sense. Yeah, sorry, just reading that. Okay, so again, one of the things that people are really liking, and I'm basically saying, don't dismiss it, is those check-ins. More of our clients are mandating that status is reported that way, rather than this random collection of PowerPoint decks, emails, whatever that you're using to report status. They're like, let's just do it in here. It's easier. And then when I get out to the data set here, and I can basically connect to this, I can write reports on it, so that I can see, oh, here's my goals. So do that, my table. I can look at the status, not status, the values, the notes. So one thing to note is, sorry for the pun, if you do use the notes feature and you have rich text in your note, it does not come through on the reporting. So just something to be aware of. The line feeds do. That makes it easier. But this is why we started using all caps for section headers and whatnot, just to make it where it could make it useful here.
Yep.
So if you haven't seen it in Teams, it'll show up in the Power BI app. You can also embed it. I had a link. We actually created a website to aggregate all of the various posts that were out there on goals. So I'll repost it again. And if you go to that site, it has all the videos that are out there, all of the relevant posts. The goals team actually had put a bunch of stuff in the community site, which kind of got buried. And I said, these are gold. We need to make sure we make it easier for people to get to. And so we're seeing a lot of that. the other thing too is you can actually now embed these in Power BI as a report. So if you haven't looked at this yet, we have a goals visual or scorecard visual, and you can come in here, and basically I can do connect to an existing. Interesting bug. And I can go to that marathon prep, just like we had here. Now, why would I do this instead of just using the regular scorecard? Well, because you have the ability to format this bad boy. So if I don't like the background color, for example, I want to go with blue, I can do that. I can also turn off things. I can turn off the column headers and whatnot. So I can actually make this more my own. And you have definitely a way to customize pretty much everything. There is theme support for this, and this is something that they've got it. They just haven't finalized it yet. I don't know if it's been released yet for documentation, but they are releasing theme support for this. So if you're into JSON themes, if you've gone through the work to do that, you can definitely theme this as well, make it look part of your application. And again, it's kind of like, what was the movie? It's like you were in a dream within a dream within a dream.
Oh, Inception.
Inception, yep. Yes. So when I hover, I can actually drill into that report that it's connected to. So you're in a report, drilling into another report, drilling in, it's like, we'll see with this. But again, now once I've got it in a report, I can embed it anywhere I want. So it opens up a world of possibilities. I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I played with it online. I've only dropped it in temporarily into the report, but I do think that the integration there for, especially if you're doing like embedded or other stuff that might be outside of the service portal, then I think it's useful for people who are like, I mean, if you're already going to a workspace or an app and then the goals is right there, like it's a pretty easy spot to have it, unless people are really wanting to like reduce the number of clicks. But I think for a lot of other kind of custom environment scenarios, it's the same reason like Power Apps and like paginated reports and Power Automate buttons have a lot of built-in features to Power BI reports. Allows you to integrate onto a page all these other service features that may be otherwise kind of annoyingly accessible.
Annoyingly accessible. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess that's the thing too is, where are people going to get to this stuff? And, again, once I've got this in here, then if I'm using SharePoint, if I have a communication site, it's very easy to plop it in there, because basically you click edit. And so for those folks on the chat, how many of you are using Office 365?
I would imagine it's got to be like 99%. Do you mean just like specifically Office 365, or are you just referring to Office in general?
They have access to it. I've actually encountered clients that have Power BI and do not have Office 365. So it does happen. Okay. It's just not very common.
Fair.
But yeah, so we did this at a recent conference. So there's a product called Sway. And if you've never seen it, it's one of those, it's a competitor, or it's supposed to be like the next generation of PowerPoint. And one of the things that we did is we said, you know what, you can actually embed Sway. So this is it. This is actually in Bellevue here in Washington. But we said, you know what, you can take this, you can give the context to the reporting that you're doing. And so this could be goals, this could be other reports, but say you're, in this case, it's a construction company. They need to explain the project that they're working on, why we're doing it, what's going on with it. They can actually integrate status into this thing so they can have live status. But one of the things you can do in here is you can actually embed live Power BI reports that could include goals, that could include other reports. So now you've got your context and your answers all in one place, which is pretty cool. Then you can, one of the things that they were doing is you can embed Sway into SharePoint so that at that point you can have, so say I have a program site that has all of my construction projects. So I can have a Sway in there for each project that explains what the project's about, have my Power BI reports directly in the Sway, on the SharePoint site. And by the way, it all works on mobile too. So, there's a lot of stuff you can do here. Yeah, the feature, I think, so again, Goals is a V1. They're working to finish up a few fit and finish things, at this point, but they're really looking to get feedback from people as to what they're looking for. So they've been doing a lot of customer interviews. We've seen a lot of investigations around what is it you're trying to do with this. I mean, some things to be aware of. One, the thing you're tracking has to be numeric. You can't track, categories, if you will. That's a limitation at the moment. You also have some challenges with negative values. So that thing that I mentioned earlier about the call center, we actually had to do an absolute value. It just said, if we have a variance of X%, then it's a problem. But there really wasn't a way to do a negative value at this point. And that's something that's been uncovered, reported. So hopefully they're going to do something around that. The owners right now, when you can have up to 5, you can't designate what they're doing. Like, why are they an owner? So this is feedback we've given them. Please give them more feedback. So kick the tires on this. Check out the website. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff up here. Oh, and by the way, a lot of people don't realize that these are filters, and you can do control click and select multiples. So it can really help people navigate these things. The average size that I'm seeing on scorecards right now is about 50 lines. And it does take you a little bit of time. Like, if you want to set up the scorecard, the goals, the status, automated status rules, the settings, and all of that, it's a bit of work to set it up. So they're doing more around that to help you get started. We do have, I believe, PowerShell support as well now, so you can get to this through the API.
Awesome.
Pretty cool. My PowerShell skills are lacking.
I feel like PowerShell is like VBA. I know enough of both to accomplish the goal that I have with either whenever the requirement has come up, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, that's why I go to your site and say, hey, did Reed do this already?
Exactly.
Copy, paste. Yeah, let me do that. Oh, yeah. So again, it's going to have the same, yeah. So it's one of those things where you're seeing greater integration. The Power Automate stuff I'm very excited about. We had actually played with, possibly kicking off a script from Excel, because a lot of these scorecards start up as an Excel spreadsheet. And having a way to just say, run it through and push it into goals would be awesome. But when they added the status rules and they added the other stuff, it's like all the support's not quite there yet. So, and frankly, I would love to see more templating type stuff around this. I think that's where we're going to see people go. So one of the things that we're playing with right now is using UI flows with Power BI. Because if you've ever had to reapply a theme across like 100 reports, that's a lot of fun. So we're trying to work out a script on using, if you haven't looked at Power Automate UI flows, you can actually record your screen interaction and then rerun that as a script. So it's kind of like, there was a recorder function we had way back in one of the earlier Windows versions, but now we can incorporate that in Power Automate. So, see, you're just learning more than just goals here. So hopefully that helps. All right. Well, the thing about, so if I'm going to go and create a new goal or a new scorecard, you can do this either on the Goals Hub, or you can just go directly to your workspace. I've got a premium workspace set up here. It doesn't have to be, it can be a pro workspace. If you click new, you should see scorecard here, and just click that. Give your scorecard a name. I will say that most people are setting these up for fiscal years, so I'll just do 2022, and I'll say my awesome scorecard. The description, oddly enough, is one of the things that's missing in the data set. We've reported that as a bug, so just something to be aware of. And we now have sensitivity label support. I'm very happy about this. So if you are using sensitivity labels, if you are using Microsoft Purview to tie all this stuff together, it applies to goals as well. So go ahead and click create. And again, you get this interface here. So I can say goal 1, like that. I could put in multiple names. So if I do, it helps if I type right. So I'm gonna try one more time. Naming orders, that's what I'm looking for. And again, I could just say 2 and 5. I don't have to tie this to data. I can do currency, I can do decimal numbers, you can format it however I wish, and it will, whatever you format this to, it will apply to both sides. So in this case, I'll just do decimal, I'll say 5 over here, and then I can stick with the original, or I can manage my own statuses. I can change them here for the scorecard. I'll just leave that. So let's do engage and enable, and then inform, and then I'm going to get rid of overdue because we never use it, and we'll leave the rest of these as is. And actually, I want to reverse the order because we don't want we want to encourage green. There we go. Yeah, close that. And then the dates here, you can use your date picker. Again, on goal levels, usually we're setting these up for the quarter. So I may be setting this up for, say, June 1st, and then going through to 9/30, like that. Oh, yeah. Try it one time.
It's a good question.
That kind of thing.
As you're setting this up, actually, is does it require a report to connect to, or can you connect directly to a data set record or entry?
That's a great question, and we've had asked for that. We've had asked for, can I just connect to an Excel spreadsheet? Can I connect directly to a SharePoint list? And at the moment, you have to connect to a report. So I suspect we're going to see more. I'm hopeful that we'll see more investment around this.
Because I mean, essentially, when you click on a bar, you are selecting a query. There is a query that is like, calculate sales, filter product category equals blah, for whatever that number, and it refreshes. So I could imagine in theory some kind of a UI that builds out some type of a flat table. You almost build like you choose your rows and columns, you select the cell, and then either way, it still builds the query, but it's almost like Q&A where it temporarily shows you the visual, and then afterwards you get rid of it, and then it still is attached to whatever query that you selected it from. As like that'd be a nice pipe dream goal to have.
Well, I mean, the thing is, you could, if you knew you were going to be connecting to a table, like I said, if you just have the filter pane set up, you could have it where you have a specific column you're connecting to. I mean, that might be something to try. I haven't tried to connect to Q&A. That would actually be an interesting way to do that, because if you can pretty much type anything you want, and then hey, let's do it.
That actually would be, I was going to say, that'd actually be easier if you could use, if you could use Q&A, because then again, you're temporarily generating the visual that you need, and then getting rid of it.
Well, let's see if we can. I don't think there's Q&A in here.
How many MVPs does it take to go bug Microsoft to include a feature if it's not available?
That's awesome. Yeah, if let's see, where do I know we've got new stuff. Ask a question. Let's put that in there. All right, so I'm gonna put that in there. I'm gonna do file save. All right, and then we're gonna go back to our goal, and then we're gonna go to here and edit, and let's see, I want to update the connection. So we're going to go back to this report. We're going to go to the very end. Oh, look at that. So can I connect to this? Need to know how to make this bigger. Keeps giving me maps. All right, because I can't read the screen. Yeah, it's one of those things where this would be pretty awesome if we could get it to work. But I'm just wondering if there's something, it doesn't give it to you. Or if we get insights, I wonder if you can, because even though it's been one of those things, of course it doesn't find any insights. It'd be awesome to do that. I really would like it to be able to connect to the underlying data, especially if we have a composite model where we're pulling in
Hmm.
data from all these sources, could really make this shine. So yeah. All right. Well, that was a pipe dream, I guess, but we can always hope.
Go hint that back to the product team now.
Yes, we'll make them watch this and say, hey, this would be an awesome thing to do because then I don't have to write a report. And I think realistically, that's where we want to get to, but we're just not there yet. And I really think, based on what we're seeing, we should have some way to create templates around this. Not everybody's creating completely new scorecards every time. They're just repeating the same thing over and over again, especially if you're doing this at the individual level.
Exactly.
It's just again, we're getting there. I don't have access yet. At least it started warning you about the access problem. The other thing to be aware of is you do now have a permissions model in here. One of the early problems, so this is something that they're still working through, because right now, if they're all in the same workspace, and if you have this view and update all capability, you can edit everything, which may not be desired. But you can also come in here and you can add a role that essentially you can decide, oh, I can only update, or I can only view like these two, and I can, view the customer retention, but I can also add notes and status to this one. So you get very specific with it if you need to.
Mm-hmm.
The thing I would caution you about, though, is if you go back, if you're doing OKRs in particular, the spirit of OKRs is openness, transparency. So typically wouldn't want to do this. But if I wanted to make it where, say it was view only for everything, and I wanted them to be able to only update status on a few of these, then I can say, then I might want to do that. So they can see everything, but they can only touch a few things. So you have the ability to create these types of roles in here as well. This is something that they've added a few months ago. Yeah, they really are. There is definitely a lot more coming with this. I think one of the things you're going to see is, again, without breaking any NDAs, they're definitely making investment with this. There's new features that will be released shortly around this that I think will improve it dramatically. But you're going to see, I think there's an overall movement toward tying data tighter with content. In any organization, 72% of their data is locked away in documents and PDFs and whatnot. In fact, we're doing a lot of work with SharePoint syntax that allows you to convert that content into structured data. And so you're going to see this become, I think, better integrated with Office over time. So there's definitely further investment coming. So I don't see this going away anytime soon. They've had way too many people who have said, yes, we love this. The most interesting case I've seen thus far in the private preview was a retailer who has a goal for every store so they can get the store status, except they have like 16,000 stores. So you can imagine how big this scorecard is. But it is cool because, I've got this here, and if I wanted to drag stuff around, like I could drag that under here like that. And you can have up to five levels with this. So it makes it very easy to set up your hierarchy and then monitor it from there. So I could see this being used for customer service, for supply chain, for a lot of different things that, again, for store performance, it's a natural fit for this. And the way it's presented, I think, actually makes it a very nice way to get scannability. And I haven't talked to Megan to see how the accessibility is on this. I would hope that it is pretty good, but you just never know.
So that actually is a great follow-up question. So in reports in Power BI, there's the high contrast mode. I don't believe, I'm looking at the interface right now. I don't think there is one in here, is there?
No, we don't. We don't have that. It's in read mode. Yeah, because you don't have all the full toolbar.
There are some like browser extensions you can get, but they're hit or miss on the web page and its ability to do that. So there may be another nod if there's at any point anybody on the Microsoft team is doing that. I've taken a couple of notes of like feedback. Like I'm going to make a few suggestions on some changes. High contrast mode would actually be useful for this. Honestly, just for the Power BI service in general, a overall entire UI high contrast mode would be useful.
Oh yeah, there's that. There's also if you have to put this in a different language, how would you do
Yeah.
that? Even though doing that with reports, after watching Ted's video, it's kind of like, yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun, because it is a lot of work. And trying to do that in a goal and a scorecard, yeah, there's really no way to do this. You can, however, customize this a bit. So if you don't like the goal, if you don't like the column ordering, you can switch those around. You can hide stuff. So here I have a due date that's hidden. I can bring that back. I can, say I want status at the beginning. So I can just drag it, do that, like that, apply. And so it rearranges, accordingly. And I got the due date in here. Due date doesn't make sense in every case. So, yeah, it's a V1. If you're not embarrassed by your V1, you're not doing something right. That's the mantra. And we're going through this right now in product development of our own. I think it's going to improve. It's definitely going to get better. What they need to hear, though, is from you. Please give it a shot. See what works. See what doesn't. Check out our website again with all the resources that we have. Again, we're trying to make it easier for you to get started with this. And see, and then give them feedback, because they are listening. They are talking to clients directly. We're having meetings and whatnot. They have discovered a whole lot of good information. Frankly, I think we need more around the visuals and reporting, because I think there's some nice things you can tie this together with, but just haven't quite gotten there yet. And the Teams integration, I know they keep pushing. I've yet to use it. I don't know. Have you used it at all? Or I haven't used it with reports, to be honest.
It's a nice to have, to be able to add like either the dashboard or the report, but yeah, for the most part, like by the time I'm using Power BI, I just want to go to the portal. Just use a web browser.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I'm glad they've got it, but realistically, I haven't actually used it. So it is what it is. You're seeing also you're starting to see some UI cleanup. So one of the things that came in this week was now settings is an actual button that's, on the right side. This used to be just a gear here next to the other buttons, and it didn't really tell you what it was supposed to be doing. So we should see some changes there. Yes, we do have a mobile version. So I did a video of this just to show it to you. So let me show that real quick. So this is the mobile version. And like I said, it mimics what you would see in the web page, but the graphs look so much better with it. The gradient and whatnot. You can see all the notes. Everything works beautifully. So, I'm very happy with what the mobile team did with goals. I think, like I said, I think it's actually more beautiful on the mobile than it is, on the web. Plus, you get dark mode.
Yeah.
I do like.
Really, yeah, I agree.
I like my dark mode. What can I say? But yeah, it's definitely available on mobile. Well, it kind of feels like a different feature, but if you've noticed, they've actually, with the last 2 releases, they've moved goals to the forefront. Because again, most people today are looking for an answer, not another report. We already have too many reports. Whether it's report server or Power BI, Tableau, whatever, we're just seeing people with an average of anywhere from 50 to 100 reports. It's just simply too many places to look. And I think goals refocuses you on those metrics that matter. And again, if you're just starting out, it's the perfect place to start. But if you've been doing this for a while, it's a way to clarify your message to, hey, let's just get to the points here. And we actually have a process we go through where we look at your recurring meetings and look at the agendas and then try to match that up with these goals. And that way we can have a scorecard for a meeting kind of thing that has all the relevant stuff. Then they can drill into the reports.
Exactly.
So just different things for different people. All right. Well, I think we're almost at time here. Any other questions, comments, folks? Hopefully this has been useful.
Yeah, it looks like some people were mentioning like how different impressed with the mobile version that they were compared to this one. So, yeah.
Oh, the first time I saw it, I was like, yeah, this is awesome. I don't know. I don't want to use it on the web now, but that's what it is. We are going to be at several, uh, it works in the Power BI mobile app. It's part of it now.
Yep.
And do we have row level security? You have row level security for the underlying report that you're linked to.
Mm-hmm.
But does it show it to you within the goal? That's a very good question. I will have to follow up on that one because the data is not actually stored in the goal itself. However, if you have historical data, yeah, that's an interesting question. I will ask that one back to the team because I know we had talked about it, but I don't know what the final one is. We definitely don't have OLS. I know that for a fact. The other aspect of this is, you can lock down a scorecard where nobody can get to it. That's one way of securing it. But yeah, RLS I think is a bigger question, so I'll follow up on that one. We'll be at several upcoming conferences, so talking about this, and I have a session that I'm doing at 365 EduCon, Power EduCon, where we are taking content, we're taking email, we're converting it to data using syntax, pulling it into Power BI, and then showing it on a goals scorecard. So it's like full-blown cycle here. So we'll see how that goes. So if you're in Seattle and you want to attend, let me know, or come on over. We'll be there next week.
Do you have the link that you can drop in for that?
Yeah, let me. It's I think it's HTTPS. Let's see. Hopefully, I'm remembering this from memory correctly. But yeah, it's 365 EduCon, and they've recently broken out their conference. And we have several of these every around the country, but they now have a full-blown Power Platform part of the conference, and so I'll be in Seattle, I'll be in Dallas, and Chicago. Thankfully, we're not in Chicago in December like we used to be. I'm very happy about this. So it might actually be more pleasant. But these are all coming up. We're all going to have a lot of Power BI stuff. We're definitely doing goals sessions at all of them. So if you're interested, attend. There's going to be the full gamut of products that we're going to talk about. And it's been interesting to be back at in-person events, I have to say. So
I've absolutely loved it. Yep.
But about after 3 hours, you have to go back to your room and kind of sit in the quiet room and say, okay, I need to recharge for a minute. So it's been interesting.
Perfect. Right. Thank you for the info and the link for that as well. And like I said, the EduCon that's coming around, if anybody's in Seattle, for the next ones, definitely go and drop a Treb a line and say hi.
Yeah, and it looks like I'm going to be presenting to the Dallas user group as well. So be at Power EduCon. So we'll have it there.
Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and let me flip back to this. Treb, this has been really fantastic. Okay. I've actually learned quite a few new things about goals. I think the last time I played with them was probably, besides some of the demos that we've been getting as MVPs, like maybe 6-7 months ago, and they continue to get quite a few new features. So as you mentioned, like it's definitely still in a V1, so 12 to 24 months, this could be a very different beast with a lot more enterprise features as they're continuing to build out those abilities to do dashboards. And I know like I'm sure plenty of additional Azure integrations and other stuff like that's going to continue to come out. So the fingers crossed, right?
Yeah, fingers crossed. Like, please, because I really do want to just connect to the underlying data. I don't need a report for everything. So we'll see.
And I'm just trying to see if there's any other questions. I think you got to Carlos's question. Did you, or did you still want to answer that one?
Do you find it?
I can put it on the screen.
It doesn't have to be. I mean, it's helpful, but it doesn't have to be. I mean, you literally could have a random spreadsheet that's being consumed by a report. So, a lot of business units have this where they have their weekly spreadsheet they update, or they have a SharePoint list that they populated, and they built a report over this, and you can tie it to that. The only thing, and this is a general limitation of the integration they've done with SharePoint, is you can't consume those models and goals. You can't consume them in a composite model. They're sort of standalone. So you have to build your own. But yeah, it doesn't have to be a data warehouse or dimensional model. It could be anything. Just make sure it's being updated at some point. That's the main thing.
Excellent. All right.
All right.
I think that's about all the questions that I got from them. Perfect. Yeah, Treb, like I said, this has been really fantastic today. I'm very happy to have you on finally. You know, the iconic hat finally made its appearance. You and Brian are the two that that have the signature hats that go with a lot of the persona as well. Like if I had the outline bust of like guess that MVP, kind of like guess who's that Pokemon, you two I'd be able to pick out very easily because you have the wonderful silhouette.
Well, we do fedora fundraisers for St. Jude, so we're going to have one of those coming up at some of the upcoming conferences. So if you want an orange fedora, where it's coming.
I love it.
We're going to raise 10,000 this time.
That's perfect. All right. With that, then I will wish you a great weekend as well, and everyone else tuning in. Thanks.
For having me.
Enjoy your morning, evenings, or late nights. I know for some of you tuning in, and I will see everyone otherwise next week.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Cheers. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. And if you want to help support this channel, take a look at our channel memberships as well. And last but not least, please consider sharing this video on social media to help pass on this awesome content and to help the channel grow. So until next time.